I guess we have to go now, huh?
Yeah. Come and hang out. Be an enforcer. It's actually really great.
I know
You get paid. What?
I know we got like 5 minutes before we start, but we could start early if y'all want to. Or
Doors are closed.
Doors are closed.
All right, then. Hi, everybody. Welcome, and thank you for joining the Art of Homebrew panel. It's the second time we're running this at MAGFest, and I really had the best time last year because we got a lot of interesting ideas from a whole bunch of designers and DMs who have been running this game for a while. I'm Inver. I'll be the moderator for this game. I've been running games professionally since I was 18. It's been some time. I'm not going to tell you how old I am, but you guys can do the math. You're smart. Let's go down, of course, starting from who's closest to me. Tell me who you are, what you've been doing in the TTRPG space, and what does homebrew mean to you?
So many questions. Hi, I'm Captain Robert, and you guys are the best audience of all the cons that I will go to through the entire year. You guys are awesome. Thank you for bringing all your questions and energy every time that we do this. I'm Captain Robert. I spent the better half of 2 decades in the restaurant business, owning my own bars, until lockdown, where I joined the rest of the internet and hopped online to tell stories. Homebrew means to me everything. It's what we do. We're always be homebrewing. You're doing it. It's your own imagination, even if you don't know you're doing it. It's just part of the creation process. Don't fear it. Embrace the chaos.
Yeah.
We pass the ball down to the bespectacled.
A little round of applause for them. Hi, my name is Gabriel Perez. I am a professional audio engineer and story writer, campfire storyteller. I have been doing tabletop games stuff professionally for probably a lot of years. And I guess in recent years, and this is sort of where like what homebrew means to me, you know that thing where you're like the college student that like knows a whole lot about like psychology, but that they have to always find the weirder movie, and they're like, no, that movie's not weird, and it needs to be weirder. Like I need the movie that's filmed on just like a Nokia flip phone that didn't have a camera. So like it needs to be weird. So that's sort of where my experience. I've played so many tabletop games and so much Dungeons and Dragons that I've constantly looking for the stranger thing. And in that exploration, I've found like just so much innovation and fun and excitement, and even cooler communities that want to do even more cool things. So homebrew to me is like access to, it's going to sound schmaltzy, but like access to what's actually in your heart.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
Wow. Thank you.
Jinx.
Hey everybody, my name's Luke. I also go by Brave. I am a professional GM with, it's 10 years now. 10 years under my belt. Professional GM and storyteller. I used to have a traveling improv show where I'd show up at places and do storytelling with a band. A lot of improv stuff. It was super cool. Eventually moved into like GMing full time. I ran 30 games a week. I did not sleep. It was terrible, but I paid my rent, and that's what matters. Nowadays, I play a lot of Fate as opposed to a lot of D&D, and like that?
Yeah.
Is that better? Okay.
You're crushing it.
Nowadays, I play a lot of Fate as opposed to D&D, and if you've played any Fate, then you know how much homebrew means to me. That is not a system. That is a general architecture pretending to be a system that lets you tell whatever kind of story you want and come up with whatever rules you want on the fly. We've actually adapted it for season 2 of our podcast, Quid Pro Roll, which Gabriel is part of that as well.
I do sound.
He does sound. So as far as like what homebrew means to me, I'm going to echo Gabe a little bit. Like you can tell the story that you actually want to tell, but recognize you can kind of do that without rules. So homebrewing rules lets you impart that feeling to your players. Gives you that punch, that pain in the gut when they realize, oh, we actually are screwed. We can't just hand wave and say, no, I have an invincible Iron Man shield, And so creating that mechanical aspect, I think to me, is the coolest part of homebrew.
the weight.
Hello, I'm Ariel Venom, and I'm gonna also kind of just piggyback off everybody here and say, like, similar. Started with a psychology degree, then I made a metal band, and then I started doing all kind of management and whatnot. And it's kind of like piggybacking off the idea that you might have to be a bit multi-talented when you start homebrewing. Can you hear me? Is mine like dead?
I'll
there
get
it
you
is.
higher if you need to go higher.
There I am.
Yeah, they're very quiet.
Hello.
We can hear you.
There it is.
Yeah,
That's
dude.
much better now. But yes,
Talk
so
past the microphone.
yeah, homebrewing. Basically, been doing it despite everything I've been doing for about almost 2 decades, as well as Robert over here. And yeah, you have to kind of tell your story, but you also have to remember that who you're involving, and you are trying to impact the feeling into it. And when you're making your own homebrew, you get to really understand because you're creating it from the core, so you get that benefit of that. And regarding me, though, I've started the past year creating my own new, completely original project called Grim Bears. So all those stuff when it comes to starting from scratch, and then I'm now pivoting to marketing. If you have questions related to homebrewing, that's all fresh in my mind because I've been doing that for the past year. So that's more my specialty for now.
Awesome. All right. I was going to add more to the questionnaire, just in case you were wondering. There was going to be more intro questions, but considering we're moderating this for, an hour, let's just go ahead and spread them out. I am super curious to hear what system you started with and whether or not you think that system was good for homebrew. Did it make you switch systems? Because, Luke, you mentioned Fate being one of the systems that you gravitate towards.
Yeah.
So how would I throw this question to you, and then you can bounce the ball to whomever else on the panel?
I don't. So, we don't have any kids in the audience, right?
Keep it clean.
We'll keep it clean. Twitch moderation rules. I started with Dungeons & Dragons 3.5, a specific hack of which that I wasn't aware was NSFW when we went into it. That was a bit of a shock to me. But because it was 3.5, obviously incredibly rules heavy. For me, a little baby player who really didn't know what I was doing, and just wanted to throw around my little druids like lightning spells and stuff, having a great time. Not great. Not great. Looking back on it though, like when I eventually made the move to Pathfinder First Edition, after having 3.5 under my belt, I was able to make new races, new like weapons, new magic items that were incredibly mechanically detailed. So if you go for those more mechanical games, it's harder right out the gate, but there is that curve, and you will hit a point where you hit that critical mass, and you're able to just like boom, 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 throw them out there.
Yeah.
And then it sounds like, let's start with you, Captain. What was your first system? And like, did you find that easily moddable?
We had an AD&D pamphlet. I don't know if we actually played AD&D, but we were in the same tent in Boy Scouts and we tried. But for a bunch of kids, trying to decipher that information, we really didn't. We knew what we wanted to do. We wanted to tell stories, and it gave us, I guess, more creative energy through it. But I remember clearly my first homebrew moment was playing Hero Quest, because we would play Hero Quest on my block. It was super accessible. We had the board game. There was no, hey, do you play D&D? There's just like, do you want to come over and play a board game? Then you would get roped into it. And I knew early on I loved the old dwarven cleric trope, and their dwarf is just a fighter. So I was like, I don't have to do this. I'm going to take a couple of the cards, which is so funny because now we're all back to deck builders now.
Yeah.
That's where we started. Now we've regressed. We've like our boomer parents. Now we have come back to where we started. And I took a couple of the divine casting cards from there because I wanted to heal and wear my heavy armor and swing my axe. And unknowingly, that was my first piece of homebrew because of just what I wanted to do wasn't fit in the cookie cutter box piece of system. And that's how I kind of always look at it. It's about tailoring to your players or what fantasy that you want to live out. There's a way to get from point A to point B without having to worry about the destruction of mechanics or the balance. Everything in mind is what are we doing to achieve fun? And keeping within those bounds. And if you think of it in that fashion, no matter what you do, as long as your homebrew isn't encroaching on the rest of your table's fun, then you did it right.
Well, I mean, that kind of goes back to like rule number 1 in like the player's handbook for 5e, which is like, screw the rules, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. This is your book. You bought it. You get to do you get to do what you want with it. Like you pay the money.
And if that's what you want, then you do that. And if you want to play raw and your table is excited about that and having the confines and definitions, then that's what you do. All of it is valid, but it comes down to having the open communication when you first start. What is the game that we all want to play? And making sure and making the hard decision that if Dave isn't a part of that and wants to play a different game, then you have to be like, hey, I just don't think this game's for you, even though we're all friends here. Getting everybody on the same page will allow you to unlock everything else of the enjoyment of playing that game.
I saw a couple of people nodding along, and I guess I want to ask you, Gabe. Do you think homebrew is just inevitable? Is it?
Well,
is there any game without tweaking it to the likings of yourself
I
or
was
your
gonna say,
players?
To that degree, like you'd have to establish what are the, it's like the like speciation or like aging. Like when exactly does a biological thing change from one to another? When does changing something small about the game eventually become homebrew? And if you are using a loose definition, then absolutely, yeah. Like I can't think of a game, even when it comes down to like computer games, I would even argue like save scumming is essentially you are changing the rules of the game to work how you want them to. So like that, I think that's just always going to be a thing. Anytime you play a game and you're like, but it would be a little bit better if.
Like
house
write a
rules.
Dissertation on save scumming being homebrew.
Well, even like again, like what you were saying with like deck builders. Like I've worked in childcare for years, and every group of kids I interact with has a different home rule set for Uno. And it's very cool because I always sit down and I'm like, all right, you tell me what the rules are and I'll work with what we got. And so like even those kinds of games, like other like Milton Bradley things, like everyone finds a small thing to change to make it more fun for their play group. All the way up to, and that's sort of where like I think something that I try to do, and I think panels like this are really important for that, is highlighting that in people and showing them like, yes, that little change that you just did isn't just like a fun, sneaky thing you did. That's also like beautiful innovation. Lean into that because that's how game designers are made. That's how publishers and editors are made, where you find something and you're like, this is a fun thing I did. I made Uno a battler. And you're like, I have seen that. I've seen someone turned Uno into a card battler game, and I was like, this. The rules were really bad, but but it was fun.
I'd like to lean into that a little bit. That like that's how like game designers are made. So like Uriel, like you and I we have both made systems at this point. Yeah. Is there any part of your system that you put together and you feel like, oh, the homebrewers are going to have a great time with this because it's like I'm leaving this open-ended for them to take and like add their widgets to.
Yes,
absolutely. Especially if you're making your own mechanics, you kind of want to start with that. For me, when I created mine, my thoughts behind it, the concept was to give the players freedom to choose and also have it interchangeable with the storyteller. So it's kind of can be hardcore for like hardcore role players, but also because there's a good balance of like foundation to it, it's not overwhelming for new players as well. And this comes down to, as I said, the concept you base it on, and with the freedom to choose, I was able to kind of go around and take all my experience and know what kind of drew people to begin with to what makes homebrew what it is, and then you just keep adding to that, and then get feedback. Just before coming here, I was hitting them up. Hey, I just made a class questionnaire quiz, and I was like, like those BuzzFeed quizzes that died off. Maybe it has that feeling. Can you take that? I need some more data. You just get input, feedback. Also, incorporate the people around you because they're just as interested and they want to get involved. So it's not as a homebrewer, you're going to take up a lot of work, but you do want to know how to delegate here and there. Otherwise, you will get overwhelmed. You're not going to have sleep. I mean, can't say that. That's inevitable. I'm going to say, I spent 10 straight hours on that questionnaire from, I started at 7 p.m., texted everyone at 5 a.m. I was like, hey, I'm done. So
it's the beautiful daydream.
Yeah.
You weren't going to be able to sleep until you got that done. Let's be honest.
I was because it's if I hit save, will it actually save? So I was like, no, I'm going to finish it, and then I'm going to hit save.
Yeah.
Also, just think about the general evolution of what D&D 2024 became. It's essentially everyone who played the game and them adopting the homebrew that the community created over the course of that 10 years and going, yep, this was better. This is a much better idea, or this is how the game has evolved, and basically adopting what most tables were doing.
Right. Potions should always be a bonus action. Always, always.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, well, I love that we have people who've actually built their own systems and have been designing homebrew for a while. I guess my question as a starting GM, or even someone who just wants to get into making my own worlds, where do you start? Because that blinking cursor on the white page when you open up Microsoft Word or whatever program you're using is always pretty overwhelming. Do you start with the characters, or do you start with the history of the world? What kind of focus do you give yourself to inspire you to start creating?
So, world building is a much bigger question than just raw homebrew. But as to where to start, that's on you. I do the bad version, which is I figure out the geography and the geology first, and then I know, okay, well, because of this, because of this mountain range, this is a very arid climate here. And next to them, because of this, bog or whatever, this is now a much more colder climate. It's going to affect these two cultures X ways, and then we start building out from there, as opposed to coming up with what would be a really cool culture, which I think is probably the more fun version. So it's going to be up to you whether you want to tackle this from a masochistic standpoint that it'll all fit together beautifully and perfectly in the end. You'll come up with some really amazing and cool stuff. But the journey will suck.
A little wisdom to add to that. Now that I'm thinking back on my project, it helps what drew you to even start developing the idea of making your own. When I wanted to create Grimbear, it started with when I looked at a character sheet, and I was like, what if it was a book, and your character sheet was the book that grows with you on your journey? And that was the concept. And it grew from there, and I built the world around that. I started thinking, how did this come to be? What was the mythos behind it, all that, theologies, and the magic behind it. And then your world would start shaping itself. You just lean on the inspiration that started that. And a tip that goes from there that I forget myself is when someone asks you, maybe what's the pitch of your homebrew, always remember that what started it, because at some point, I got lost in it. I would tell people, oh, you can do all this and that. And I was like, wait a minute, your character sheet's a book. It's a grimoire, and it grows with you. And that's the pitch that I would say now. And it's took me 4 months of being lost. And I remember that's what I need to say. So you can get lost in the song.
You're talking building from theme.
Yeah, or if something like theme or that core idea that drew you to wanting to make your own thing.
Yeah, it's the writing style for finding the if of your writing thing. And this works with a lot of creative projects where it's here is an established concept, a recognizable thing, but what if insert something that changes? So it's here is a fantasy world, but what if all magic came from
Mitochondria, the powerhouse of the cell.
Yeah. What exactly? What if you had to check through mitochondrial influence in people, to what's that famous book series by Brandon Sanderson? Was like, what if magic came from metals, and things like that.
Mistborn. Yeah.
Mistborn. And so like those kinds of things. Like, what is your if? What is your what if? That changes. What if your character sheet was a grimoire that grew as you played, and that creates the thing that not only is the theme, like Brave was saying, but also like sort of gives you a good example of what your scope might be. So if you want to create a game system that's like, what if you're all Keebler elves? and you're specifically trying to fight like the corporate hierarchy. Like, that is a very specific kind of game.
We're unionizing once again.
Yeah. What if? Well, and like you just have that, and you're like, all right, now I need to create a game or a story or a world or whatever that fulfills that what if, and you take that, at least conceptually, you take that as far as it needs to go, but it's very easy to get lost in the sauce. So take that as far as it needs to go, not necessarily as far as your brain might want it to go.
So just go all the way back to the basics to get real granular.
Yeah.
Reskinning is your friend.
Mm-hmm.
The more that you can reskin, the more you don't have to worry about, am I breaking the mechanics of this game? Am I doing things that I shouldn't, that are going to be long-term detrimental that I don't know yet? And you know what? That's also okay, because we need to emphasize learning through play and quit sitting around and trying to figure everything out on our own. We're going to learn through the journey, learn through play, just play as much as you can. But here's a simple reskin of what we've had in my game. We have a star druid that is within our world, and that star druid happens to be in a druid grove in Icewind Dale. So we're talking about light, and we're thinking about, what does moonbeam look like in this world? So what we've done is we've reskinned that to where it is the northern lights, and everything is about the Aurora Borealis within that. So we've taken the same class, and we've just given it a new coat of paint and made it fit within our world and what that character looks like and the story that player wants to tell. And that's just easy, simple homebrew that didn't change anything else mechanically, that gave it all the flavor it needs for the story that me and the players want to tell.
Yeah.
I want to add on to that, because like, in that regard, like, you have a reskin value of, very much this 1-to-1 of you now are working with like the Northern Lights, but you can also take something that mechanically exists in one fashion and slap that same skin onto something else. I was telling Tess earlier that, this morning I was bored. I made a character that was a bard, but I wanted to give him a claymore. Bards can't use claymores unless you take a lot of feats. So I wanted to reskin a rapier and play it up like the way that he fights is not really fighting. It's more, he's dropping it, he's stepping on it, it's popping up like a rake and hitting the enemy in the face. It's very funny, it's very comedic, and it adds this like level of narrative to the play in that regard. But it's also an item that currently exists and currently has its own mechanics. So if somebody picks it up and knows how to use a claymore, he's kind of screwed.
I love that. I love that. Use the claymore as a bow staff.
Honestly, one homebrew rule that I think I would want in every game is you can use any weapon, just whether or not it'll actually be viable in combat is another story. Thinking about screwing up, though, how?
Always make your mistakes as fast as possible. That's what I say.
That's a good one. I want to know what are the warning signs that your homebrew has gone too far, but more specifically, I want to know about the homebrew item or mechanic that messed up your game. Can you think of one off the top of your head? Okay, I got one person nodding over there.
I can think of one. Sorry.
No, yeah, go for it.
So there's in my games, I've generally, like, homebrew items, homebrew magic spells, things like that. The things that usually cause a hiccup are, and this is exactly like the dream of creating homebrew items, is when you're players, obviously you didn't think this item all the way through, and so your players are like, what if I use it this way? And you're like, oh no, that's bad for this world. And there was it was a game that I started, and then another GM took it over and was playing it, and the other GM was like, what about this hammer that like the person can choose how heavy it is, and they can just actively change the weight of the hammer.
Oh,
so it'd be really and I was like, that sounds. GM Gabe was like, that sounds mechanically dangerous. Chaos Gabe was like, dude, run it. That sounds fun. And it did cause some very silly problems, one of which being like the player being able to just like put like Mjolnir style, just place it on to an opponent and they're just stuck there. And that, of course, ballooned into various other things where they were like, got upset with how particular roleplay thing went, and so they were like, I'm just going to continuously increase how heavy this hammer is until it's crushing its way into the core of the planet, and everyone's like, what is happening? And then, after that session, we were like, hey, let's maybe change the parameters of this magic item. That was really cool, very innovative. I love the energy, but that kind of scared everyone else at the table. So, to maintain fun, and that's the main goal, we did change that magic item.
Fair and reasonable. You had one as well, Luke?
Oh yeah, I had a couple. My first 5e game, I was not used to 5e. I'd been coming from like Pathfinder and from like 3.5, and I was used to that much more higher power scaling where you're making nukes with villagers basically. And so the homebrew items that I was giving them were insanely powerful. By the end of the campaign, when they were getting up to level 20, enemies had like thousands of hit points. It was wild, and they were still ripping and tearing. But because it was a mythic level, it was like a mythic campaign, so it was like, the magic is big, the spectacle is big. They don't really care that they're ripping and tearing. They're having an amazing time. The magic item that like almost ruined my game before like sitting down and having to talk to the person, being like, hey man, I think we need to nerf this, and they agreed, thankfully. Is a magic item that I have been retooling for a couple of years now called the Gambler. It is a coin that when you flip it, you get a 6-shooter revolver. Magic 6-shooter revolver, and the cool thing about it is you can bank your crits. So anytime you get a crit on something, you can choose instead to fail and bank it in the gun for when you really, really need that one crit shot.
Oh, I love this item.
They
It's possible to go wrong.
This is how the market crashed.
This is how the market crashed.
This is how the market crashed.
Yeah, this is how the market crashed. They fought a Planetar at like level 8, and they had banked so many crits that they just pow, 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 right in the face, and took it down.
Never underestimate the hoarding.
Yeah.
Never underestimate the hoarding. At the start of the official module in Vecna Eve of Ruin, I decided to go a little bit willy-nilly and make it a bit scarier at the beginning, other than just a handful of cultists, because it's like, this is Vecna. We want the Vecna feeling. So I'm like, let's open up a portal to hell for no reason. Matter of fact, let's put 2 Death Knights in here, and I'm going to give them Vorpal swords. No. So I want this threat of heads are falling and rolling right at the beginning of this. We just started with a group that some people have played together, but not all. And people's parameters of being chaos demons have not been laid out yet. Mm-hmm. One character has fallen through the portal to hell, and now we have off of episode 1, we already have someone in hell away from the party. I completely underestimate the need I want to take these Vorpal swords. So the party destroys these Death Knights and now has these Vorpal swords. I cannot take them away because I have presented them in awesome fashion. So I have absolutely created Avengers in-game at the very start of this campaign, and it's a beautiful chaos. But at the same time, I'm like, we're episode 2, and I got to figure out how to get him out of hell without cheating the whole gravitas of the game. Just beautiful disaster. But you embrace it, and you learn, and you figure things out along the way. And this is a campaign where banking things has happened. We've had up to 3 wishes stocked at the end of this campaign. Wow. And you start figuring out ways as a GM to balance these things out.
Yeah.
So did I think that I needed a mechanic for Wish going in? Absolutely not. But I can tell you this, in my world now, after you make a wish, it starts to deteriorate on your body. And things have changed, and now we're making rolls, and it's not just what you say, it's the actual magic that flows through you changes you. And that is all absolute BS that came out of stopping cheese from happening on a good narrative combat situation or story beat. Figure out a way, let your players use the crazy tools, but find interesting ways for them to have to make choices. Choices and dice rolls, because that's what we're here. We're all here to bet on narrative. So find a way to at least get the enjoyment out of that chaos. The same way, if anybody who's dealt with a deck of many things multiple times, you find ways to incorporate it, because maybe you don't want to drop a pyramid and a mummy lord in the middle of your game, and you have to reskin that and figure that out on the fly.
Well, the cool thing about those choices is, you give them those Vorpal swords. You have the guy that's now in hell. There's a story beat there, my man. Like we've all read the His Dark Materials series. Give them the choice. You can get down to hell and get your buddy out now, but you need a blade to cut through, and it burns up when you do so. You need a blade to cut through and get out. So you can do it now with those Vorpal swords, or you can delay that gratification, try to find another way. So give them that choice, and they're going to be like, oh, but I like this sword. Yeah. What if we can just keep one? What if we're just all in hell for a little while and I get to keep one?
Yeah, and it's great. It's giving them. They have a villain. They ripped their friend from hell, and now there's this Balor that is. It's episode 60, and I've had it over here. I'm like, oh, just at the right time, this guy's gonna come back, rearing his head from episode 1. So it ends up becoming one of the more memorable parts.
Yeah.
I'd like to add to all what they're saying. It might come to no surprise. I mostly did World Darkness, so versus D&D. But
Good.
For me, though, the way I think is you're always going to have some people that are just chaotic gremlins, and then you're going to always have mistakes. Eventually, you find your own ways to adapt to that. For me, my cheat codes is a lot of my part of the integral systems in all my homebrew is I incorporate a lot of chaos. Especially because I write darker stories. So, for example, chaos gives you a lot of extra narrative fluff that you can actually make very impactful. But additionally, you just need to adapt as well. One of them, I did this post-apocalyptic magical future thing, and then one of my players just I created this system where it's called a superior credits emporium. That's how they make their thing, they create their things, all that. And one of my players just I'm just gonna leave. I was like, okay, that's fine. You're free to do whatever you want. And he's and he starts building a spaceship. And then he goes to space. He did all the rolls right, did all the parts right, all the science, and then he made a spaceship and just left. So now I'm I gotta make space. Next thing I know, the next session, I literally created 12 space federations out there. Different planets inhabited. I even created 12 logos. I love that. On the spot because you just gotta go. It's and then then we start the next session. It's you knew I was gonna do it. It's
yeah, definitely. Definitely knew.
This is everybody who's ever spelljammered. It's always this.
Yeah, you gotta adapt, and mistakes will happen. You just gotta like it.
Yeah,
I guess. Be masochistic a little bit.
I've always been afraid of doing homebrew in space, just because you're not dealing with just one planet anymore. You're effectively expanding.
Yeah, it added 3 years to the campaign.
Wow.
Right. Yeah.
There's so much to talk about this, and it's hard to pick a vein. I think the one that I want to ask you guys about is homebrew curses. and how you've homebrewed detriments for your players. Because it's easy to come up with like items that make them feel cool and badass, or situations that are going to empower the characters, but how do you really mess with them? And do you like to use your curses in a way where it's a tangible thing, or is it more of a resource, like a sanity kind of point system?
Tess, please don't do this with Gabe on the panel.
Why?
I have seen your table.
I was also going to say, like, it really matters, like, on the player, because like when you're trying to come up with something that's going to like create some. The goal is to either like tempt them or ward them away from something, like mechanically. And I for sure I gave Alon that one curse where like his character found out he only had 1,000 words left, and every time he said words. But he also, like, at the end of the adventure, he was like, and then I'm going to get up and I'm going to give a long speech, and he just kept talking, and I was like, oh, man.
And you asked for it.
I did. I was the wrong curse for the wrong player, or the right one. It was the right one for the right stream. But, oh, man, Alon and I actually came up with a D20 list of curses for a Halloween game one time. And our goal with that specifically was every curse had to somehow change how the character was played. One of my favorites was this get a little graphic, but I'll keep it PG. You feel something in your throat, and then your jaw starts to explode as you birth up a giant egg. And then you fall down dead, and then hatching from the egg is another you, all slimy, but one level lower.
I knew you were going to pick that one.
Yeah, Slod style.
That was fun. And then there was the other one that was like you see like writing on your skin, and your skin's like very like papery, and it's like now you are like all slashing damage against you is like double critical. Like, do not get cut. You are made of paper, and like little things like that. So like small things that have like big mechanical impact, or big flavorful things that have small mechanical impact.
Let's talk session 0 and safety tools.
Yeah.
This is a conversation to be had with your players about what is acceptable and what they want to experience. I personally don't enjoy curses whatsoever. I think most of the time I don't want to yuck someone's yum.
Yep.
When they're about to get something, I look at it as a customer service interaction. Here's this awesome experience of getting something, and now I'm trying to do nothing but torment you with it when you're just trying to experience maybe getting your first +1 weapon or piece of armor. If we're going to talk about detriments, it needs to be story, narrative driven, and more than likely they kind of need to know that it's coming, because those are conversations you need to have.
Oh, for sure.
If those players are into it and they're like, hey man, hit us off with some crazy stuff. You've checked your safety tools. You look at it. You're like, okay, here's the stuff that we can get away with, and they're bought in to that. Then you're going to have a great time. But if you don't use safety tools and you spring on some crazy stuff, you're going to end up having a horrible experience. And I just everything boils down to the communication that you have first with your party. Yes. And even if you think you know your friends, I have made the mistake, and I have put spiders in my campaign, and I had a friend that was arachnophobic and had no idea. And I had to sit there, and my skin was boiling because I just put my friend through a horrible experience. And I will never forget that to the day I die, to make sure that I look at my sheets to make sure that I don't ever do that again to anyone, let alone a close friend. And it could happen so easy, because I was sitting there and I was in Hobbit mode, and I was like, phase spiders are cool, and I had this whole moment, and you know what? I was the big bad.
Yeah.
I was the evil guy at the table.
Thank you for bringing that up, because in-game trauma can transfer into in real life trauma very quickly if those kind of discussions aren't had.
Yeah, it's definitely making it fun. As you were talking about the customer service thing, the first thought I had was like, I think we definitely have different customers.
Yep.
I do get a lot of the hurt me please. But that's fine. That's fine. Again, different shops, different customers. It happens.
Absolutely.
Though, so to kind of like follow up on that and what you were bringing up kind of before, the sacrifice thing. I always view curses as like this needs to be a devil's bargain. Like you take this huge debuff now, and it will give you this huge buff later on if you survive. Will you shake this poor sinner's hand? Will you take this deal out of character to hurt your character?
Risk reward is always that's
so good.
That's the good stuff.
Yes.
Yeah, my precaution for all that is a lot of my homebrews, I do stress when they make their characters to look into the huge list of flaws I've created, because I also incorporate, like, if you get 2 flaws, you can also now look at this boons list. And then that also gives me insight onto, how intense their character to try and be and all that. So it plays a little bit of, like, a lot of pre-planning just by observing how they shape their character, and then you could go from there. Of course, like Captain said, ask the real important questions too when you need to. But again, I like to let them do a lot of work too. So when they can look into what I've created and then really invest it, and then I know what I'm working with. So
I am interested. So we've kind of been talking from that wargaming perspective of like D&D, Pathfinder, and all that. And I'm gonna tell on myself a little bit. I've got encyclopedic knowledge of World of Darkness, and it's a problem. I'm interested in what your take is, because like if you're playing mage, like if you get like a curse or you get something bad, like that's bad. That's really bad in lore. How do you handle that?
Never played mage. So what happened for me, how I even got... Yeah, I don't think I even got to that part of the discussion when we started, when you asked what your first campaign was. Mine was... So I played D&D as a player, and then I had a group of friends that they weren't like into it at the time, and then I was like, well, I could probably make a story, and that's how it started. And then, but then I found World of Darkness, and then I came in when there's already like, I don't know, 12 different books. So I was like, there's no way. And I also gave myself a deadline, because I'm like, I could get us going in like 3 months. And then found all the books, like, this is the issue. So I skimmed the main one, and then I would kind of skim the others, and then found what I liked, and then found what they kind of liked. So it was the vampire one, and then took some of the ideas from the other ones, like there was the other one that's like a detective one.
Hunter.
Yeah. And because they had like a lot of the relics and the curses that you're saying.
Yes.
And so I took that, and then I started making my own with that, because a lot of it was based in America, and at the time we were looking to travel like Europe and all that. So I started homebrew as my first thing, actually. I never not homebrewed, unfortunately, so I don't have a lot. But the reskinning that Captain said, I did do a lot of that, and then I went from there. The curses can be intense, but it works with a story, and then obviously I have a cheat where I say I'm a dark story writer. It's going to be intense certain times. It's not for you. Don't participate. So I have that luxury. But there's always a balance. Like I said, and all that experience now with my new system, I always incorporate like flaws and boons. So you take sacrifices, you get a benefits. So always a benefit to have things like that works out, and it keeps it fun.
There are so many ways to post homebrew these days, from, DM's Guild to Itch to a whole variety of other online platforms. How has the online nature of sourcing homebrew changed how you've done it yourself? Is it part of your sources of inspiration, or is it anything that you all engage with?
Oh, man. The number of times early on playing Dungeons & Dragons, having to explain to somebody that not everything on D&D Wiki is official material.
Yep.
And being like, okay, so you see this word here that says homebrew. That means please don't bring that to my game without me knowing. I will answer that very lightly, because I'm more interested in what others have to say. But I think that just with any amount of like massive chunks of information, it makes it like, research skills. If you have research skills and
Sometimes.
build those, like being able to find source and all that stuff, like it's incredibly important, because there's so much. There's so much.
We live in the golden era now. You can, if you're a part of the D&D Beyond ecosystem, there's all of this homebrew that's already there and coded, and you can go look at. You can see what's been upvoted. You can see things that inspire you there, or search for new stuff, and easily transfer it into your game if you're there. Depending on what VTT you use, you instantly have the tools to more efficiently create your own homebrew and code in any item that you want to. It all depends on what is your deployment system of the game. Yeah. Are you still playing live in person? Are you playing in VTT? All the tools translate differently to this, but the access to information has never been greater. There's never been more conducive communities. You don't just have to go to Reddit anymore and get shredded by posting your homebrew with people that are actively here just to make your day worse. There's so much access that's out there. It can be overwhelming, but start at the basics. Where is your found family and community at, whether that is in person at your local game store or whether that is in your own Discord, and foster those communities there and bounce around. I know my own personal resource a lot of times is just workshopping with another DM or GM that is a friend of mine and tossing an idea there and pulling, and you usually get a high quality primary source back from them that's drawn from who knows where. Could have been a game from 10 years ago for them. So really the life is your oyster now for being able to go out there and look and see. And we have this huge third-party creator economy. That's technically, that is all homebrew that's there to help access. And man, there are some really good people that are out there in that world that you can take inspiration from and use in your own games. So, get to searching.
Yeah.
Get to it.
Heck
You hear that applause? That's for searching.
So as we
Get good at searching.
As we're reaching towards the end of this, I wanted to go ahead and invite you, the audience, to come and line up in the center if you have any questions, while I let you all know that we're going to have a game later at 11:30 p.m. So if you're still on premises and you want to see everyone on this panel and some in the audience, join us to have our Romantasy Battle Royale called Heart of the Dungeon, where you guys, the audience, are going to be able to build the main love interest. I'm very excited for it. But if you all had any questions for our panelists, please feel free to line up. I will lend you my microphone, and I'll give it a good old wait. I guess there's one brave soul.
One Korak.
Hi.
Hello.
Everyone. So last year I ran my first homebrewed campaign where my player, it was a lot, but it was under the 5e system. My players had pretty traditional fantasy characters, and I isekai'd them into rural Appalachia, where they faced like Americana cryptids and lore and some indigenous, deities and things like that.
Yeah.
The thing I ran into is when trying to make villains and big bads, I would try to reskin from the monster manual in 5e, but it's very difficult, especially with the higher challenge ratings. I found that either the villain almost TPK'd my party unless I was doing fudgy DM math behind the board, or they went down with just a couple of hits from just 4 players who aren't experienced. So what advice do you have on kind of balancing, especially at higher levels?
That's a really tricky one.
Yeah,
So-
I got a super easy one. One. Make sure your crit doesn't one shot. Use that.
There you go.
It can scare, but don't let it end the encounter in the game. If you go by that North Star, it sets the expectations, but it doesn't end the encounter. That's fine.
Yeah. That's really good, because it's essentially like the idea is, so the way that the challenge rating system in at least 5th edition and most forms of D&D, after challenge rating like 11 and 12, it gets very abstract, because the game is anticipating that you are utilizing the monster in a deeper context, not just like a white box fight. And so like a Kraken is going to have a particularly high challenge rating because you're likely fighting it in the ocean. So if the ship goes down, the party is likely also dead, or that kind of thing. And so it's it's constantly expecting the context of it. So creating something, using rules like will double the damage of this attack kill anybody in the party. If the answer is generally no, or like probably no, then that's good, because again, you don't want to just kill anybody with one hit. But I do love downing. My experience 5e, it's very hard to kill players, player characters. Very hard to kill player characters.
Good qualifier.
There, yeah. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
I say generally, although usually it's those spike moments. It's like suddenly you rolled well and the rules panned out in an unfortunate way, and then the person's dead.
Quick follow up on that. In your combat, not just for this, for any game you run, think about choreography. There's so many tables I've sat at where it's I hit it with a sword, it hits me with its sword. What is the choreography that you want within a fight? I actually learned a lot and gained a lot from like playing Final Fantasy XIV raids, where make your players have to move around the map, make them have to engage with the environment, and also like have the enemy engage with the environment and change it. You know, if you're like fighting off like a rocky crag, like at the bottom of a mountain, and they start like chucking down rocks, well, now you've got this big wall of rocks that it's basically like your players can't get over, and it's still chucking rocks over at them. Like, if you think about how that dance plays out in more ways than like, you know, bam, 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 then your players are going to be like, oh my God, that fight. And they're going to also lean into that narrative style as well. You know, they're going to be like, I swing my sword up. I want to like catch him off balance. So they're going to do more of that. So
just throw out CR and learn the math. Once you have the math, then you're like, it's good.
Yeah.
I am now in control.
It's that thing with like cooking and baking, where it's like, it's not just, don't just look at the recipes, figure out the techniques, because then you can just make any kind of like souffle or something like that. You don't have to. I mean, souffle is not the best example because you have to make sure you follow the rules for souffles. But also
Don't whisk a cake.
Understand the rules of why a souffle does the thing, and lots of other things you can bake more easily.
I don't have anything extra to add that, but if for me, how I would tackle that is, since it's the Appalachia, it's probably creepy, and for me, in case you're not sure how to like scale, what I would do if I was just doing that, it'd be like creating phases. That way, you know, if it is like they got to like a third phase and they're really about to tap out, and you might have like two more, but you've already created a whole experience along the way, you know, I feel like you can then play with the flexibility of how far you want to take it by creating phases of what stage maybe this boss might be. Like the first stage, they might not ever see it, but you have them learning the environment, engaging with it, and then it comes in and maybe scares them and things like that, and then it'll progressively add to the tension. And then you can build up and basically follow around with them, see how they're engaging with it, and then you can even skip a phase if you think they're not going to even care about that one. Add the really intense one. They're just taking it like a boss, you know?
Thank you for that question. Next up.
Hey, how's it going, y'all? I'm Travis. Hi, everybody.
Hi, Travis. Hi, Travis.
Hi. My question's a little more like conceptual and kind of vague. I'm about to start my second season of a homebrew campaign set in the Amory Wars universe, Coheed and Cambria. So sci-fi horror. And I've been working on it for about the past year while I've been playing in another campaign. And I recently, as it's like about to be happening now, I'm like, all these ideas, plot points, things like that seemed like a great idea at the time. I'm now like, I don't know, just questioning myself and like, is this going to be dumb? Is this going to resonate with the players? And I loved what you said before about like, stop trying to figure everything out and figure it out from playing.
Just play.
But I don't know, is there any kind of like check all that you have for
play.
Like...
Play. Quit. Get out of your own head. You're going to find out through play. You're going to figure out what works. And you know what the bonus is? You get to play while you're doing it.
Yeah.
You know, don't worry about your opus on this. Like, you'll get there. You will get there and you'll find out what works. And there will be no more gratifying feeling when you do find out what works, or you realize and get to figure out that problem that you had through that actual play test.
Yeah.
Cringe and be cringe.
Yeah, man.
Don't let it hold you back.
Let it fly.
That, and also like, if you front load like, hey, I'm trying out some weird things in this adventure, give me feedback. Like, ask for specific feedback if you're trying something new. I've done that many times with players, especially if you want feedback from your players, do let them know beforehand, because otherwise your players are generally going to give you, it was fun, I had a good time.
I like a medium dark roast.
Yeah, exactly. But like if you give them at the beginning, like, hey, I would love some feedback because I'm changing up a bunch of rules, and I want you to know, like, not only is it fun, but like, do you think that was balanced? Do you think that would scale well? And then, because if your players are used to playing, they know what's fun and what's going to work.
Yeah, set the expectations, and everything else will
Set
will
expectations.
Follow. And everybody wants to play. There's more. There's so many people that want to play anything.
Play testing is tricky to put together, but also there's so many people that are excited to do it.
Different angle tackle. Going off of our talk about like world building earlier, the stage that you are at now, and if you're making shirts for it, like, you're treating this more like a narrative play or an actual play. Theme. What is the core central theme of this, and what serves that theme? Once you have that established, and once you look through the events that you want to cover, then you look at the other events and you're like, okay, but this is really fun, So don't cut everything that doesn't fit the theme, but you can start paring down based off that and find out where to put your energy, basically.
Thank you for the question. All right, we've got 9 minutes. Let's go.
So in my campaign, I'm going to be building a lot of like unique things for each member of the party. However, there is an issue where their baseline characters, there is a large power difference between the weakest of the party members and the strongest. And I was wondering, do you have any strategies to make it feel like everyone still gets a boon to their character while making sure that the weaker ones get a stronger boon?
I have a quick one. Generally, especially if you're playing games like 5e and things like that, any ability is only going to be useful in certain situations. So definitely find out what the situation that other person would shine in, and make sure to and if you even have to ask the player, like, what do you feel your character has ever shined in and been felt like that, because then you can work that more prominently into the game. I've had games where Rangers feel like they're not doing the thing, and then suddenly, all right, now you're in entirely survival situations. Enjoy.
They may not know that they're the weakest character at the table. What is the thing that they are deriving the most amount of joy from? That's the North Star, not whatever the meta is. Parties can range wildly compared to what kind of games that you're running, whether they're combat heavy or whether we're using resources and more social situations and RP and roles. Find out if that character loves what they're doing, then there's nothing wrong with it there, and you can find along the way. If it becomes an issue later, you can buff and you can get there if that's what it becomes. But just find out what is their enjoyment, and then you can tailor whatever you need to that player.
Always make it seem intentional. Oh, there's just something you haven't done to earn the full favor yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Next up.
Yeah.
Hi, this is going back to the world building part. When I homebrew like the whole world setting and use session 0 to get my players invested in it. And then before they can really explore what makes the parts of the world interesting, they just evolve into murder hobos.
Oh.
So how do you get people engaged in unique settings?
You need to talk to your players.
They built the setting. They told me what they wanted, and then they just killed every NPC instead of talking to them.
I don't care. Your players are like, oh man, we're gonna have all the fun and screw the GM.
Yeah, they were like, we want something socially and
you are one of the players of the game, so
complicated,
your fun
and
is
then we're
just
gonna
as
blow
important.
it all up.
That's
What are
so
the
mean to you.
consequences?
Like,
What are the consequences?
Oh, I dropped a brick on their head.
yeah.
Find a middle ground.
But seriously,
there needs to be
talk to them.
consequences.
I like to, when they first session, actually have them all separate. And I do that by finding out their backstory, and then I'll incorporate them, and there's a way for them that they eventually meet or they don't. And they might not meet till session 3. However, when you have them more isolated or with a pair, that they work better, because chemistry is always going to be a thing around the table. You're able to incorporate more intention and drive to the player by being able to identify versus everyone talking over each other. And that way it gets you honed in and you can hone them in then. So
Yeah.
People
Little
have
tactics like that.
vendettas, people have grudges, and people also have mercenaries. You got this.
Yeah.
But have that difficult conversation with your players that this isn't fun for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you have
that's the
that
big one.
conversation, then your players are going to have to sit there and recognize that you're not having fun at the table and that it's we're not accomplishing the main goal.
Yeah.
Have that honest, hard conversation, and that we're like, maybe this just isn't the game and table for me.
Yeah.
Thank you for the question and the vulnerability. All right, we've got like lesson 5.
What's your favorite bit of homebrew you've made for a game, and how did it affect the game?
Oh, lightning round.
I made mechs. I made mecha for 5e. This was back when the only material out was the player's handbook and the DMG, and I decided, no, I want mecha. It completely destroyed the balance. It was hilarious. It took me like 3 months to figure out the rules, but god damn was it fun. And I will never do it again. I will never, ever. I love mecha. They're so pretty. I will never, ever do it again.
Yeah.
One of my favorite was a sci-fi related one where part of their reward, because they can do like mission stuff to get rewards and whatnot. However, they always have like this personal like PDA thing that gives them hidden stuff, and there's always like hidden objectives I would give each player that could be like sabotage to one another. So part of the intensity happens just from them engaging each other because they don't know what they're doing, and if they do certain tasks, they will get greater rewards at offsetting their comrade. And it creates some really spicy moments for sure, and chaos, of course. Like I said earlier, I like chaos, so. I really like that one. Yeah. just and it adds intensity when you get up from behind your chair and you walk to somebody and just slip them a paper, and then you walk away.
I had that kind of experience once running a game where like the party knew that there were sort of like pod people clone-esque things, and it was just pass a paper to 3 of the players. None of them were actually clones, but all of them thought everyone else was clones the whole game. It was great. The papers had important things on them, but everyone was like, why did he get a paper and I didn't? Hold on. And yeah, it was fun. Lots of paranoia.
I love my players to have loot because we want to go and find loot. We want to use loot, and we want more than 3 attunement slots. So attunement be it Diablo style. 2 rings, amulet, cloak, 2 weapons, martial classes have access to another set of weapons over on the side. It's a more AAR or RPG style build out, but then you go, this is my kit, and now I have to make the choices on this kit. Of what's going to work. So instead of going, oh man, I'm very limited. Now I have different loadouts, and we make that choice with that loadout based on what the character or class is. And
That's
I just
a good one.
love it to death.
I have a final story on the passing out slips of paper thing as well, just for everybody in general.
Just a fun thing to do.
I had doppelgangers in an inn, and I passed sheets of papers to each of the party members, and all of them said, "You are not the doppelganger."
Brilliant.
I don't know if I'm going to be able to top that one. So instead, I'm going to say thank you, everybody, for coming to this panel. I'm sure that I had a great time, and I hope you had a great time. And please give it up for my panelists. If you really super enjoyed this, you should come see us later at 11:30 p.m. We'll be running until 1:30 a.m. and we'll have plenty of donation tiers and other things that you can do as part of the audience to interact with the game. But if you can't make it there, thank you for making it to this one. Have a great con.
Thank you guys for being a great audience.
My voice echoed that time.